The other thing that you talked about was marketing, and you hit the nail on the head, so much so about spending money or putting time in. And I remember having some difficult conversations with a franchisee or two who didn't want to spend the money. And I would say it literally comes down to this: either spend the money or spend the time. But you can't do neither, right? You have to do one or the other. And it is exhausting to do marketing, kind of like what you said, where you're spending just strictly money for marketing and not putting in the time. But you have to do kind of a combination of both. And then the other thing that I think is critical, these are things that are critical, not just for Kiddo Kinetics or any sports-related business, but really child-related, service-based businesses. And that's the last thing is, in order to be successful, we have to scale this thing, right? We can't be, our franchisees are not going to be successful with one or two locations. You know, going into one or two childcare centers or having a soccer league at one particular field in your community where you have this huge territory, you're not going to be successful, right? You need to do all of those things. So it takes a special kind of person to be successful in a child-related business. And last and most importantly, like you said, they have to care. Right? They have to care about that business. Otherwise, it comes through loud and clear if they don't.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think like I said, I think we are fortunate in that we, by nature of what we do and our core values and our culture as who we are, have tended to attract people who mostly do care. Like, I think they do care about what we're doing. I think they are definitely believers in the value of what we bring. And so then it comes down to, you know, are they willing to do the work, right? Like, are they willing to get out there and be that, you know, like I said, mayor of Kiddo Town? Are you willing to get out and tell that story? And you know, one of the things that I found really interesting recently, we commissioned a focus group study because I wanted to understand from the customer's perspective, being a parent, like, what are the key things that they care about? And there weren't any like massive surprises in the study that we did, but there were two things that came through really, really clear to me. One of them was that you can run all the ads by me that you want on Facebook or wherever on my phone. If there's no social proof, you know, if people in my community aren't talking about you in a positive way, that is noise to me. Like, putting an ad in front of me means nothing. What is meaningful to me is, you know, my son's best friend, Billy's mom said, Billy, you know, your kid needs to be in Kiddo Kinetics because Billy's having such a great time and he's sad that Tom's not in the class with him. Right. That parent will run to their purse, get out their wallet and go to our website and sign up right then and there. But if they saw 50 Kiddo Kinetics ads, who cares, right? It doesn't really matter to them. So that social proof, building reviews and validation in your marketplace are super important. The other thing that came out really clear is once you've overcome that hurdle and they've got the social proof and they believe that this is a good fit for their child, then the price is irrelevant. Like, they'll pay whatever. Like, there's not price sensitivity, you know, in terms of, well, you know, but it's too expensive. Like, that's never really the situation. They're willing to pay whatever, I think, to make sure that their children are getting the developmental needs that they have met on the activity side, on the physical side. And, you know, what we do impacts the developing mind of a 2 or 3 year old that we're working with in ways that go well beyond just their physical well-being, you know, their emotional well-being, their ability to socialize, you know, all of those kinds of things are impacted. And parents want the best for their kids and they're happy to pay for it. They just want to know that what they're signing up is the best for their kid. And it's not just because some ad said so.
Right. They want to know what they can expect. They don't want to be disappointed. And we would never looking to gouge parents, but to your point, parents will pay for their kids to play in sports, regardless of the economy as well. And if anything, my experience with price sensitivity, Dave, has been with the franchisee who was afraid to charge more. It was not that the customer didn't want to pay more. It was the franchisee afraid. Once upon a time, our franchisees were afraid to break the $99 barrier. It was, you thought we were absolutely trying to, reinvent the wheel by getting them to charge more than $99. And we went right to ripping the Band-Aid off back in 2005 and went to $125. And what happened? Everybody paid it.
Yeah, everybody paid it.
And future franchisees never had that fear because to them, 125 was the new base.
Yeah. Yeah, same thing. Yeah, I think, I remember Justin was telling me at Soccer Shots, at some point along the way, they instituted a registration fee in addition to the enrollment.
Yeah.
And the registration fee was to cover, you get a shirt and you get some season prizes and things like that. And at first, there was low adoption because everyone said the same thing. Like, there's no way parents are on top of paying the regular enrollment. They're
Right.
also going to pay another $30 to register. No way. It'll never happen. Not in my market.
Uh-huh.
Right.
Because
Well,
my
now everybody
territory is
does
different.
it. Exactly. And of course, now everybody does it. And it's almost expected at this point. It's kind of an industry standard. And so
Yeah.
I think you're exactly right. We do get that from franchise owners that are afraid. And that's usually what you hear is, well, you don't understand my market, right? It's different. And I always just like to say the example of like, well, it must suck not to have Starbucks there because, in your town where everybody's so frugal and practically minded, where you can get coffee at McDonald's for $1, no one certainly is going to pay $3 for a coffee at Starbucks because you can get it across the street at McDonald's for $1, right? Well, no, I mean, we have Starbucks. And I'm like, okay. They're like, but that's a difference of $2. And I'm like, yeah, well, that's what we're talking about here. $2 a class, right?
Right.
$2 a cup of coffee, $2 a class. Actually, it's even different because you're talking about a 300% price increase, and I'm only talking about a 20% price increase, right? So
Right.
anyway, we're on the same
Yeah,
page about that.
absolutely. Dave, are there any new trends that you're seeing in the industry now?
Good question. I would say probably the biggest one is that there's a lot of action here. It seems like every time I turn around, there's a new brand kind of
Yeah.
jumping into the space, which I welcome. I'm not afraid of competition by any means. And I feel like the more we get out there and validate that what we're doing is useful and important to the community of our clients, like the parents, the easier it gets for everyone. I'm a definitely like a high, rising tides raises all ships kind of guy.
Totally.
That's why I think Justin and I at Soccer Shot still get along because we understand like we can coexist and not really interfere with one another. So I would say that's a big part of it. I've definitely seen that trend. I would say the other thing is that most of our locations have moved for our enrichment programming to a monthly subscription model
Mm-hmm.
and away from a seasonal model. The traditional model in our industry has been, you've got a 10 or 12 week season, and then parents sign up for that block of time and they pay for it. And it has a beginning and an end. A lot of times you get that child or that parent to sign up for one season and then maybe they don't come back, especially if you're a single sport program.
Sure.
Because then if you did it in the summer and then you sign up in the fall, it's kind of the same thing over again. That's where I think we do have a bit of an advantage being a multi-sport program with hundreds of different lesson plans. We can teach at a childcare center 52 weeks a year and never repeat a class.
Wow.
And so we offer our program mostly as a monthly subscription model. And you pay, we hit the credit card every month. Your child participates every Thursday at 9:30. And it's open enrollment. So you sign up when you want to join. If you want to cancel and drop out, you can do that at any time. And I would say we're starting to see more and more of our competitors going with that kind of model as opposed to the distinct starting and ending season. And then the other trend I would say is summer camps are huge. Like summer camps are becoming such a big business. And I think it has to do with the fact that, you've got this dynamic, 80% of school age children have two working parents. Those parents aren't off during the summer, right? So they've got to go, those kids have got to go somewhere. So your early elementary kids that are in kindergarten, first and second grade, the parents have to find out what they're going to do with those children over the summertime, and summer camps is the answer. And so some of our biggest franchises, like the original franchise location in Dallas, Texas, does a very meaningful part of his revenue for the year in the 2.5 months of the summertime. And so that seems to be another growing trend. It's like summer camps are really big. I would say the last thing is when I was growing up, if you went to a public school like I did, and you had two working parents after school, you were what we called a latchkey kid. I was kindergartner. I'd get off the bus and I'd go home to an empty house.
Yep.
And now I think if you do that as a parent, like they call child services on it, it's not. They don't do that anymore, right? So now there's this big industry of aftercare.
Sure.
And so that's another big opportunity where we at Kiddo Kinetics are now going in and into the public school environment and teaching programs that are during those aftercare hours, because those schools are struggling with what do we do with these kids 5 days a week for 3 hours a day,
Right.
And so we're kind of part of that answer. And so some of that is done through like working with PTA and PTO organizations, offering it as a enrichment that may double as a fundraiser for the PTA. And then also there's some government programs that will help offset some of those costs, like Title I and 21st century grant programs and things like that that'll pay for services for after school programs.
Thank you for tuning into the Emerging Franchise Brands podcast. For additional insights, guest applications, and to stay connected, visit us at efbpodcast.com. The Emerging Franchise Brands podcast is for entertainment purposes only, and the views expressed do not necessarily represent those of Emerging Franchise Brands, its host Frank Fiume, or Emerging Franchise Group, LLC. Any discussed franchise or investment opportunity requires thorough investigation, obtaining proper disclosure documents, and expert consultation before making any investment decisions. The podcast and its host do not offer professional advice or endorsements, and they hold no responsibility for actions, representations, accuracy, or consequential damages related to the podcast content.